We give you the support that you need to access capital. So, whether you're a rising star in business who is thinking about starting and scaling your six, seven, eight, and nine-figure brand, we give you the support to access the much needed capital that you need. Or whether you are a rising star as a real estate investor and you don't know where to turn to access capital, we give you support to access the much needed funds that you need to leverage real estate as a positive income producing asset. Today, I will talk a little bit about access to capital, but one of the most important things that I want us to go into today is not just how to access capital, but is how to leverage and how to mitigate capital. Now, there are four important concepts that one need to pause and think about when you're getting into business or whether you're becoming an investor into real estate. Because what I see happens very often is that you access the capital, but then that capital can be easily mismanaged. So I want to begin by talking about one. As a rising star in business, as an investor in real estate portfolio, it is so important to understand what we call capital market portfolios. Why? Because different financial instruments are set up for particular reasons, and it is so important that you invest the time, talent, and resources to understand these financial instruments. Now, with Wealth Builders Blueprints, we will do a deep dive into financial instruments so you understand the differences between debt instruments and how best to leverage debt instruments, what is equity instruments and how best to leverage equity instruments, what is credit financing and how best to leverage credit financing. And there are a list of other financial instruments for us to consider. You have DSCR loans, and they have a special function, and it is the understanding of this body of knowledge that makes you more informed, more educated, and better positioned to make smarter, wiser business investment decisions. Divorced from this body of knowledge, I can simply say this: you're not only leaving crumbs on the table when it comes to building wealth, but you're perhaps leaving more than half of the cake on the table when you excuse yourself from learning, applying, and mastering this body of knowledge. The next concept that I want us to briefly talk about is capital market access. So, first, you know the portfolio that exists. And second, it is for you to understand how to access. Now, what I can say, we have seen many rising stars in business all across the United States of America who struggle to access capital. Why? Because they don't have all of the right information. So, your ability to access capital begins by understanding the best practices in accessing capital. And there are a number of things for us to unpack here. Now, in the United States of America, everything evolves around your FICO score. And one of the biggest mistakes that we see many rising stars in business do is that you begin your business startup process, your business scale up process, your investment process by leveraging your FICO score, by using your FICO score. Instead of using your FICO score, it is important for you to understand how to leverage your FICO score. So, in leveraging your FICO score, you need to establish your LLC. And you're leveraging the FICO to help the LLC to strengthen its paydex score. So the business in of itself now has its own legal identity and it can rise on that legal identity. But you need to understand how this ecosystem works and to be able to leverage this body of knowledge to your advantage. Again, the Wealth Builders Blueprint, we will go deep into this body of knowledge. So you can now take the guesswork out of business startup and business scale up. You can now take the guesswork out of smart investment portfolios. These are things that you don't want to speculate about. You want to ensure that you have the body of knowledge that can help you to make highly informed, highly educated decision that always gives you the high rewards, the measurable results, the predictable outcome with the highest degree of accuracy. When you leverage your FICO score and something goes wrong, and things always go wrong, it affects your ability to access capital because now you have a late payment, you have a charge off, you have derogatory marks showing up on your FICO score, and that is preventing you from accessing capital when you most need it. Now, when you learn how to leverage the FICO towards the PAYDEX, whatever happened in the PAYDEX world stays into the PAYDEX world. So it means that your FICO is shielded 99.9% of the time. So these are things that we will go deep into. But for those who have been leveraging their FICO, and you now have late payment charge of derogatories, we have the experts in our team that will also help you to correct this. And once this is corrected, we're going to then set you up the right way to start accessing business funding, to start and scale your 6, 7, 8, or 9-figure brand, or to become a real estate investor, a private equity investor who is now building wealth. Now, the third important concept that I want you to consider here is one, not only what capital portfolio represents or how to access, it is so important to understand how to leverage capital. Again, one of the biggest challenge that we see is that you access capital, but then you don't understand all the moving parts in leveraging that capital so as to ensure that that capital becomes a positive cash flowing asset. And because this process is delayed, one of the things that happens when you access capital, it is subject to a concept that we call PITI. All right. Now, if it is being leveraged in the wrong way or not being leveraged at all, it can turn out to be a disaster. Let's take, for example, you get a line of credit that is released to you, and it's released into your business account. Now, it is there, it is parked, but it's not being optimized to give you positive cash flow. That fund is going to be subject to interest payback, regardless of the fact that in some cases, yes, you may be able to access 0% APR for 6 to 24 months. When you have money parked and it's not giving you positive cash flow, that is not the smartest way to leverage capital. And the only way that will happen is largely because you're not clear about your game plan. So these are some elements of capital leverage, wealth creation that you need to understand. And it's important to get the right mentors, the right coach, the right sponsors, a supportive community around you that is really helping you to make the best investment decision. Yes, it is important to know that you can access capital long before you're ready to make the investment, but it is equally important to understand strategic capital leverage long before you access the capital. Those two must work hand in hand. So the ability to leverage capital in the right way is significant in starting and scaling your business and in position yourself to build wealth. Now, the fourth and final concept that I will share here today is capital mitigation. And capital mitigation has a lot to do with reducing the debt life cycle, reducing the cost for capital, and exiting that debt portfolio at the earliest point. Now, this is something that must be done when it makes sense, because sometimes mitigating debt has many moving parts. For example, I may have a cash flowing asset, but that cash flowing asset has debt obligation. It is subject to PITI, principal and interest, tax, and insurance. So I have two choices because I'm now liquid, and I can leverage that liquidity to offset the cost of that income producing asset. So what it does immediately, it reduces the principal, and by reducing the principal, it reduces the interest. And by reducing the interest, it also inflated the equity that I have in it. But that equity can sit right there, parked right there, not being fully optimized. The big question you must ask yourself, is that a smart decision to make when you're thinking like a wealth builder? Perhaps the next thing for you to do is to not settle that debt, all right? But is to focus on the equity that is being built into that asset, take out the equity, leverage the equity into income producing asset. So several things is happening here. You could have taken the liquid cash to pay it off, but the smart choice might be to hold that liquid, leverage the liquid into other income producing asset, and also take out the equity from the existing asset and put it into other income producing asset. So you have a snowball of positive cash flow asset to address all the debt portfolios that you have. These are things that we will have to take some time and go deeper into it. So as to ensure that you understand the nuts and bolts and you understand the moving parts so you could make better, smarter, wiser investment decisions. So whether you are investing in your business, you want to start your 6, 7, 8, and 9-figure brand, this body of knowledge sets you up to be more clever, to be more strategic, and better positioned to build wealth. So whether you're thinking about becoming a real estate investor, this body of knowledge helps you to make better, smarter, wiser decisions. Now that we have covered this, I want to say to you that we have built relationship with multiple financial institutions across the United States of America. So we're able to point you in the direction where you will be able to access the right financial instrument for the stage that you are in business and for the type of business that you want to get into. As I said earlier on, all financial instruments are not created equal. And let me give a few examples here. When you take debt capital, Whether you take debt to start a business or you take debt to invest in real estate portfolio, that debt is subject almost immediately to what we call the PITI. All right. You have to start paying principal and interest, tax, and insurance. And anything that interrupts your ability to reach your monthly debt obligation, it can have negative effects on your relationship with the financial institutions. And if that process is prolonged for too long, it can have a negative impact on your FICO or your PAYDEX. And that in of itself is going to affect how everyone else, all the financial institutions, interface with you. So that instrument has its pluses and its minuses, and it's important that you know about this. So ensure that you have a mentor, a coach, a sponsor, a supportive community that is helping you to understand this. But equity instruments operates different. You see, equity, when you're able to attract equity partners, they share in the gains and they share in the loss. And of course, you want to have a good risk mitigator to minimize the risk and optimize the gain so your private equity partners will be more happy, more excited, and you are setting the stage to attract more private equity investors on your side. Now, when you have private equity investors on your side, you're able to roll the dice the way you want to roll that dice. Why? Because that portfolio, that investment portfolio that you have received into the business, it is not now necessarily subject to PITI. You may now have an obligation to pay dividend yields. Now, dividend yields is another subject matter for us to get into. There are many different types of dividend portfolios that when you get into the Wealth Builders Blueprint, we will spend some time going into this so you understand the mechanics, the nuts and bolts of different financial instruments. So you now can make better, smarter, wiser financial choices. So we have looked at two financial instruments. Now, credit financing also has some of these advantages. Because with credit, yes, you might have an obligation to pay down on the principal on a monthly basis, but you can have APR avoidance for a period of time. And that might be a strategic move, all right, when you understand the cash flow of your business. And these are so much for us to unravel. But today, as I said, I want to give you a high level overview. I want to get your appetite a little wet of what is going to happen when you come into the Wealth Builders Blueprint. Now, we want to help you to start and scale your business. And again, there's right and wrong ways to start your business. We can give you the money, and we have access to all of the right people to ensure that you get the capital to start and scale your business. But there's a right and wrong way in which you can do this. All right. So as you come into the Wealth Builders Blueprint, we will talk to you about the right processes that you need to consider when starting and scaling a business. All right, you will understand some of the important concept behind building a strong brand. All right. Now, the foundation of any business begins with a strong brand. But what I've seen is that there's so many abstract interpretation behind what branding is. The Wealth Builders Blueprint really gives you a blueprint to understand the step-by-step processes that you would need to take when you're building out your brand. We will also go into things like how to build and master your value creation ladder. You cannot want to be in business and not think about the value creation ladder. Now, the value creation ladder has four important touch points, and it's important for you to understand each of these touch points and ensure that you have systems in place to create the highest degree of impact across this ecosystem. Many businesses are failing because you're not focusing on the value creation ladder. And if you are focusing on some aspect of the value creation ladder, it is not enough for you just to focus on some of the moving parts. You need to understand all of the moving parts and ensure that you have proper systems in place to nurture impact across the ecosystem. Third, you will also learn the importance of mentorship, coaching, sponsorship, and supportive community. Now, in the absence of this, you can struggle to scale your business. You may be able to position that business to become a a 5-figure earner, a 6-figure earner. But to push it beyond this, you're going to struggle because you don't have the right supportive systems in place to push you forward. Again, with the Wealth Builders Blueprint, you will get step-by-step process that is really helping you to understand the importance of building out a mentorship community, the importance of building out a coaching community, the importance of building out a sponsorship community, and the importance of bringing all of these things together as a supportive community that are highly committed to pushing you forward with the vision, the dreams, the hopes, and aspirations that you have for yourself. Last but not least, we will also focus on factors like the client conversion ladder. You know, in starting and scaling a business, again, what we see is that many rising stars in business, you struggle with the client conversion process. Again, this is a process. Success is built in process. Wealth is created based in process. And the more you understand about these processes, is the more prepared you are to take ownership of pushing your business in the direction that you want it to go to achieve your targeted results, wealth. All right. So with a client conversion ladder, there's a number of important concepts that you get to understand. All right. We will go deep into things like how do we create brand relevance? We will look at things like market viability because some things that we see happen is it's very often you are attempting to create brand relevance, but you don't have enough information of what brand relevance really represents. You see, what brand relevance is saying is that your products and services must be relevant to the ideal client. Kudos, you get that one right. But it is also saying that the ideal client must be relevant to you. But what are those biodata markers that you need to understand so as to ensure that the ideal client, they're relevant to you? We go deep into this body of knowledge. And this is what enables you to take the guess game out of doing business, the guess game out of wealth creation, because you now understand the moving parts. So when you get access to capital, you know exactly how to deploy capital to achieve the business objective. And there's so much more for us to get into because a possibility exists that you may be able to create relevance across this ecosystem that we call brand relevance. But you fail to observe the market size and the market viability. So these are important concepts that you need to know when you are saying to yourself, I am making a highly informed, highly educated decision that is designed to give me the high rewards, the measurable results, the predictable outcome with the highest degree of accuracy. You want to take the guesswork out. Now, I know a lot of what I'm saying may sound complicated to newcomers. The beauty in working with us is that you have the mentorship community, you have the sponsorship community, you have the coaching community, you have a supportive community. So once you're part of our ecosystem, there will be someone there by your side, walking you through the step-by-step processes that you need to understand to position yourself to start and scale a 6, 7, 8, and 9-figure brand, to position yourself to build wealth. So I want to pause here for today, and I want to reemphasize it's not enough to have a desire to start the business. You want to know how to access capital. It's not enough to access capital. It's equally important to understand how to leverage and how to mitigate. And with Global Capital Inc. and 10X Branding and Marketing LLC out of New York and the Wealth Builders Blueprint, we have an ecosystem, all right, that is going to provide you with that comprehensive range of support to move your vision and forward. So I want to encourage you, once you find this information interesting, I want to encourage you to come and join our community right now. And we have the supportive systems that are in place for you, not only to understand how to do business the right way, how to invest the right way, but we have the supportive systems in place to ensure that you access capital, all right? Different financial instruments, the right financial instrument for the stage that you are in business and what you want to do in business. We have the right people on board to help you leverage that capital in the right way and to know how to mitigate that. So that investment portfolio never becomes a liability. It becomes a machine that is being leveraged the right way, positioning you even when you sleep to build wealth. My name is Gary Thompson. It's a pleasure being here with you today, and I look forward to seeing you on the next side. So get registered today, reach out, DM me, and let's start a conversation. Get a free consultation, and let us help you to position yourself for success. Be blessed, and see you on the inside.